this correlation, the link between the way in which we speak and our singing voice. Obviously, it's one voice which we use for speech and singing. And especially I feel where it comes to the passaggio, it's really important that you just spend a bit of time thinking about both these types of uses of the voice. How do you speak, and how does that flow into your use of your voice when you sing? And I suggested that you found a short poem or a piece of prose that you could practice reciting, being very mindful of the flow of sound and how you're using the airflow. We do have different different parts of our voice: head, middle and chest. But I want you to understand that I don't necessarily believe that you tap into your head voice, you tap into your middle voice, and you tap into your chest voice. It is one voice, but you have different registers within it which you have to be able to access, and it's these passages that link all those registers, the ones in between those notes. That's where the passaggio problems often are, because we are monitoring our sound as human beings. We can't help listening to ourselves, and as soon as the sound between those registers becomes a bit dodgy, our brain steps in, and as I said on Tuesday, tension takes over. Okay, so just let me spend a little bit of time just re-emphasizing for you the importance of taking time to understand why these funny notes happen and what you can do about it. The thing about controlling the breath with the diaphragm, well, you can't control with the diaphragm. You can be aware of what your diaphragm is doing because it's controlled by the nervous system, and it works 24/7 without you even thinking about it. So it isn't actually something that you can stop or control. You can allow, and you can, because once the diaphragm is fully extended like that and flattens out as we breathe in and air is taken in, the diaphragm flattens out. That movement back up to its normal resting place, as I've said before, happens automatically. And it's really the kind of how your surrounding muscles, your abdominal muscles, lower abdominal muscles, how they cope with supporting the airflow and maintaining it. Okay, all right, now so those are the basics. Now let's just take this one step further as you're thinking about your prose. In this book here, Unlocking Your Voice by Esther Salomon, I have read this to you before, and I think it's worth just saying again. You know, it is just an area. The passaggio literally means passage. You will certainly notice that there are two passages of notes that make you aware that something is happening to the vocal machinery, and which may disturb you or suggest that you are going astray. This is most noticeable, she says, on the higher of the two passages. That's certainly the case for me, but I do know that each have a kind of similar thing going on, but much, much lower around your speechy area as you start to leave that area and go towards a middle C, D, E. Now that is exactly the same as what happens for me an octave higher as I start to go into my higher range. Okay, so it's the same kind of thing. She says there is no reason to be tense or to be shaken at these places. Our amazing vocal system makes these adjustments in order to supply us with the possibility of a wider and a more expressive range of notes to sing. The laryngeal muscles know full well how to do this, and do it very neatly so long as we do not interfere. We should not complicate matters by searching for a different technical position, but instead simply reassert the basic vocal position that we are now learning to live with. Our well-supported stance, our elastically wide open throat, and our alert countenance. I think that's really an important thing, this idea of your face being alert and ready for work, rather than a bit kind of withdrawn and relaxed, like you've got nothing to do with the singing that's happening. It's about stepping up, folks, stepping into your singing shoes, Sue, if you like. And she says, So we do all that, we step into it all with our wide open throat, our alert countenance, more athletically than ever. So these passages where you feel are a bit wobbly, that is where you really do have to pay attention to how you are responding physically to what you hear, and to completely not allow yourself to self-sabotage the sound you're making. I know it sounds really weird, but it's like jumping off a cliff and knowing that there is a safety net to catch you. Alright, so get over the fear of it, just do it, allow, and see what happens. Okay, she says singing in these places will feel like harder work. Nothing different, yet it costs us dearer. Yes, we feel tension, but tension of a proper and necessary kind. Gradually, in this area, the voice will fall naturally into place. Very often the result of the tension at the higher passaggio is very positive. It brings to the voice an extra compelling quality and intensity. Okay, and then she goes on to say that some composers, like for example Benjamin Britten, and I think she mentions Verdi and Puccini, use this particular passaggio place for dramatic intention. So you can see it's quite a tool, the passaggio, but learning how to overcome your own insecurities about what's happening, it's a tough step to make. Alright, so Sophie, your question very quickly where you said, let me see if I can read it from here. Hi Julian, when doing the long warm-up exercise from Saturday's broadcast, going over the passaggio was very much smoother at a hum than on a vowel, and that you found that R was the hardest. Well, yes, for all those reasons I told you just now, the hum, as long as it's an open-throated hum and you're not pressing those lips together and causing tension, if you've got an open-throated hum, what's going to happen is your lips will come together very gently, and you're concentrating on keeping your throat nice and open. And what it's doing is, because you have no vowel sounds particularly to concentrate on, you're just picking up on those resonances, and therefore you're responding. You are being a human being and you are responding. Okay, that's a very simple answer to your question, but let's think about why R is the most difficult vowel. It varies person to person. This is where one-to-one coaching steps into its own, because everyone is different. You cannot apply every single rule the same way to each individual. You have to sort of, on a group, you've got to think of each separate person and the way they deal with things, as a separate entity. So, for example, I like R. I've always liked R. I've never had a problem with that vowel. But I can understand why sometimes R, which is the vowel with the widest aperture where the sound is made, can easily allow you to start the sound, and then as you go through the passaggio, it's really easy to kind of literally lose that shape, lose that, I don't want to use the word grip, but lose that feeling, because it's probably, the most difficult position to maintain. Something like E, which people tend to shy away from, it's much more focused. E, you can feel it in my mouth. E, E. And really, until you get the opportunity to have a session, a one-to-one session, you really can, until you start to do that, that's when you can actually find out precisely what you are doing as an individual. It could be to do with your language, your natural native sound. It's a question of playing around with it, really, and finding a vowel, finding a shape that really suits you when you're practicing and trying to do these passaggio ideas. Because all you're looking for, let's just wrap this up because I can ramble on, as you know, all it is that you are trying to find the key through your own passaggio. You're trying to find how it feels internally when it works, and then to keep replicating that until you get so used to the sound that you can immediately imagine the feeling and go for that. Okay, and that's just brought me to one final point that I would like to make. Every vowel, the R, E or U, as you go through them, it should have a residual sensation of the previous vowel. So that, like, if they all had batons to pass over to each other, one vowel to the next, they would be passing over a little bit of the quality of their own baton to the next one. Okay, so similarly with the registers, as you go from chest to middle to head, as an idea, remember, you are trying to carry elements of the quality of the each register, if you like. So let's say chest to middle, that passage in the middle will have a flavour of chest, but also you'll be mixing it with middle. And then the same goes with the top. You will not be singing middle voice all the way up to where the top passaggio happens. You will be actually learning to start to mix some of the head voice sensation with the middle voice, and it's really like, you know, another handing over the baton idea. Now all of this takes a tremendous amount of patience and scientific reasoning. Okay, now there is more to this subject, and I won't go on now because I think this has been well over 10 minutes and I didn't intend to do it. I have another book which I've used a lot, Your Voice and How to Use It Successfully. I started to use this in my adult education evenings, and this is all about how you use your speaking voice. But you know, there are so many similarities, so I would just finish this little bit of a video for you by saying things like this. I've actually got passages, I don't know if you can see that can you see? I've drawn lines and marked them out. Can you see that? Yes, just in the middle there. And this goes back years where I've done this, but let me just read a little bit so that you can hear it. Okay, so this is written by a lady called Cicely Berry, a very eminent lady in the acting world, and has coached many people, actors, in the use of their voice. And she says this: the interesting thing is that the moment you feel inhibited or ill at ease, you actually become defensive. And when you become defensive, certain things happen in your body. Your stomach muscles tighten, as do the muscles in the upper part of your back and your neck and your jaw, because, and this is what is really interesting, this is the position of defense, the pre-human reaction to a situation of danger in which you are ready to fight. Okay, and then the physical mechanism of the voice is directly tied up with the muscles controlling those parts I have mentioned, so that the voice is immediately sensitive to their tensions. When the stomach muscles tighten, the breath cannot fill the chest as deeply, so that breathing becomes shallow and less controlled. Tension in the back muscles prevent the rib cage opening out, so that the cavity of the chest cannot resonate as fully as this, and the sound is thinner. This tension is in the back sets up tension in the shoulders, which in turn sets up tension in the larynx and resonating cavities of the neck, which limits the vocal range and again restricts the resonance. And tension in the jaw restricts the movements of the lips, the tongue and the palate, making speech and anything vocal less defined and controlled. And then she says, we'll get into this later. So it's a big subject, and this is why I want you to be really kind of at ease and familiar with this idea of working through your passaggio difficulties and learning to self-scrutinize what your habits are. Is that right? Yes, it is. Okay, more from me later. Bye for now, folks. Have a lovely day. Bye.